Ruth Payne's house in Irving, Texas. Because he thought, what? That's where Oswald lived. Didn't know they were separated. He had a boarding house. He thought he was living at that address. Why? How did he get that address? Application, same thing. So he goes to this house, and when he arrives, he talks to the owner of the house, Ruth Payne. What's that? No, not yet. That's who she's staying with. So when Hosty arrived at the address in Irving, the home of Ruth Payne, he discovered that Oswald's wife, Marina, was living there with her 2 children. So Hosty goes looking for Lee Harvey Oswald, because that's what he's got on his sheet, right? And when he gets her, he finds out for the first time that Marina is living with Ruth Payne, estranged from her husband. Okay? Although he doesn't know that exactly. He just knows he's not there.
Wait, where's her name?
Isn't Ruth Payne on there?
Yeah, but what about Marina?
Well, Marina, M-A-R-I-N-A. Marina Oswald. M-A-R-I-N-A. Now, as I mentioned, Lee and Marina were separated at the time of the assassination. Mrs. Payne had befriended Marina. They both were separated from their husbands. Ironically, they both had 2 children. Marina had nowhere to go. Lee Oswald was physically and mentally abusive to her. She took a liking to Marina and said, "You can stay with me." They kind of booted Lee to the curb, didn't divorce, and that's why he went and lived in the boarding house, because they weren't living together. Well, when Agent Hosty discovers that Oswald doesn't live with Marina there, he asks her, "How can I get in touch with him?" Well, honestly, neither Marina or Ruth Payne knew the address of his boarding house. They really didn't know where he was staying. And at this point, I don't think Marina especially cared. You know what I'm saying? Okay? But she didn't know where he was staying, the address. So what does Hosty do? He leaves Marina one of his business cards and says, "Hey, when you see Lee, have him give me a call so we can talk." Now put yourself in James Hosty's position. You get assigned to keep an eye on this Lee Harvey Oswald who came back from Russia. And you, in my opinion, he, in my opinion, makes a half-fast effort to do that. Okay, he finds out he's living in Irving, or thinks he is from the application. He goes there and he talks to Ruth Payne and Marina. They say, "Well, he doesn't live here. We're not sure his address is." "Well, hey, just give him this card. When he gets back, let me know." Well, how do you think Hosty feels less than 2 weeks later when the man that he was supposed to keep tabs on kills the President of the United States? That's why he's in Fritz's office trying to find out about this Lee Harvey Oswald. Because his rear end is a little bit on the... You don't think the FBI is going, "Gee, nice job, James. The guy you were supposed to be keeping tabs on killed the President of the United States." Now, we don't know that for sure yet in the interrogation, but that's what he's thinking. Here's James Hosty right here. But this is why he's there, if you're wondering. Okay? Now, but let me tell you what he does. Once Hosty realizes that the guy he was supposed to keep track of shot the president, or is accused of it, he goes back to the FBI office and starts going through the files a little closer. You know, be one of these things after the fact, because he's trying to cover himself a bit. Well, he didn't realize that a new file had come into the office on Oswald that he didn't review. And in that file was a copy of a letter that Oswald had written to the Soviet embassy in the United States. There's an embassy of all these countries. Ukraine's embassy is in Georgetown. You'll see that building. But anyway, he writes a letter to the Russian embassy in the United States. He had done that prior to the assassination. And this is what in that letter it said. I just want you to listen carefully. He told the Russian embassy in that letter that he had been to Mexico City in late September. And when he went to Mexico City, he visited both the Cuban and the Russian embassies there. And why did he visit them? because he wanted to secure a visa to go either to Cuba or back to Russia. Now he did this prior to the assassination. Now we'll get into that a little bit later, but the embassies are going to deny him. Neither embassy lets him go. Why would they let him go back? He's going to have to do something dramatic to be able to go back there and maybe get that visa. And what might be the dramatic thing that he's going to do? Kill the Soviet and Cubans' probably arch enemy, which would be what? The President of the United States. Just keep that in mind. That's my theory on this. But I think he tried to get in, they denied him, they kicked him out of the country. Okay? Hosty knows that he's been to Mexico City. Hosty knows he went to the embassies, both Cuban embassy and the Russian embassy, and tried to get a visa to go back to Cuba and Russia. He knows that. Okay? So he looks at all this stuff and decides, gee whiz, I better get my rear end to Dallas Police Headquarters and figure out who this Lee Harvey Oswald guy is. Because he's supposed to be keeping tabs on him. Doesn't do a very good job. So, Hosty wants to interview Oswald to see if it's any part of a Cuban or Soviet plot to do what? Kill the president. Wouldn't your thought process be that? If this guy who shot the president tried earlier to get into Cuba, tried earlier to get back into Russia, and has been in Russia, wouldn't that cross your mind that maybe Fidel Castro and the Cubans or the Russians had enough of Kennedy and decided? So he is trying to figure out what Oswald knows. That's why he's there. Does that all make sense? It's kind of confusing, but it's better to listen, isn't it, than try to write it? Okay. We'll make it right as far as you get in the notes later. Now, after Agent Hosty walked into that interrogation room, as I mentioned, Oswald got upset, and Captain Fritz tried very hard to calm Oswald down because he had him kind of where he wanted him. And Agent Hosty backs off. He doesn't want to step on Fritz's toes. And he says to Captain Fritz, who has no idea why he's there, I'll tell you later what I'm doing here. And Fritz is just going, okay, right? And he continues. So after this exchange between Oswald and Hosty, Captain Fritz continues his interview. Hosty just sits in. Everybody kind of picture what's happening. So, Captain Fritz then asked Oswald 3 direct questions. Again, I'll write down when I tell you. This is okay. He said, do you work in the school book depository? Do you have access to all rooms at the depository? And why did you leave the depository? Okay? Do you work at the school book depository? Do you have access to all the rooms in the depository, and why did you leave? He answered yes to the first 2 questions. Yes, I work at the depository, and yes, I have access to all the rooms at the depository. Concerning the 3rd question, why he left, his excuse was, I didn't think there'd be any more work there after the assassination, so I left. That was his answer to that. Okay, so you kind of follow me? Lee, did you work at the school book depository? Yes. Lee, did you have access to all the rooms in the depository? Yes. Lee, why did you leave the depository? Well, I didn't think there'd be any more work after the assassination, so I left. What's the next question Fritz asked? What? Not yet. Where'd you go? Yeah, where'd you go? You left. Where'd you go? And he said he went to his boarding house to change clothes, get his gun, and go to the movies. That's what he told him. That's exactly what he told him. He said, why'd you leave the depository? What'd you do? He said, I went to my boarding house to change clothes, get my gun, and go to the movies. What's the next question Fritz asking? Well, yeah, why would you take a gun to the movies? You know what Oswald said? Because I felt like it. And this is the kind of interview that Fritz is getting. This is the kind of interview he's getting. Okay? Well, Oswald admits pulling his pistol at the theater. He says, I was wrong, and I got clocked for doing it. And he says, I deserve what I got. If you pull a gun on a police officer, they're going to clock you. So he doesn't hide the fact that he pulled the gun on a police officer. He said he did it. He said he was wrong doing it. He said, you know, I really got clocked for doing it, hit, but I deserved it. What I got, I deserved it. So Fritz asks Oswald 3 more questions. He says, did you bring a rifle to work? Do you own a rifle? Or did you ever own a rifle? He answered no to all three questions. No, he didn't bring a rifle to work. No, he doesn't own a rifle. And no, he has never owned a rifle. Fritz then asked him if he ever received any firearms training, and he said that he did. Where did he receive it? In the Marine Corps. Okay? Now, Brian, what was his next question? Lee. He said, quote, Lee, did you shoot the president? And Oswald answered, no, I emphatically deny that. His next question is, did you shoot the officer in Oak Cliff? Oswald answers, no, I deny that too. The guy's out of reality. There's no question he shot the police officer. But yet he said, no, I deny that too. Well, FBI agent Posty can't take it. He's sitting there and listening to this. And finally, he asked Captain Fritz, because he knew if he asked it, Oswald would get him mad. He said, ask him if he's ever been to Mexico City. So Fritz repeats Posty's question. He asked him if he's ever been to Mexico City, and Oswald replied, yeah, I've been to Mexico when I was in the Marine Corps. Posty gets frustrated, and he clarifies what he meant. And he says, I mean Mexico City, not just Mexico. And Oswald's reply was, what makes you think I've been to Mexico City? I've never been there. Okay, so I mean it just, no, it's just, and that's why I'm not having you write this, you see what I mean? Because it's just, you can't write the story. Okay, I'll make sure you get this. Well, suddenly a police officer walks in the room and tells Captain Fritz that the first lineup is ready. What does that mean? Anybody know what a lineup is? Yeah, what they're going to do, they're going to bring in Oswald and usually other prisoners, sometimes police officers, those type of things, and they line them up in a line, and they get a witness there, and they got this really bright light on the lineup people so they can't see the person that's trying to identify. So he's going to his first lineup. Okay? Now, weird about this is prior to them taking him to his lineup, they search him for the first time. Other than taking his wallet and searching his wallet, they hadn't searched him at all. So they search him right before the first lineup. And I want you to write this down. This is what they find in Oswald's possession when they search him prior to taking him for the first lineup. I think this stuff, some of this is key, and I'll get you into it later. First of all, they find a bus transfer ticket to a bus station that was only 2 blocks from where Officer Tippett was shot. You know what a bus transfer ticket is? It's where you buy an open-ended ticket and you can go to this bus station and go here. Okay? So you buy the ticket with the idea that you're going to take it to a designated spot and get on a bus from there and go somewhere else. Okay? Does that make sense to you? So they find this bus transfer ticket. Now, ironically, this is what one looks like, by the way. This is from 1959, but this is what they look like. Okay, a bus transfer ticket. And what it does is it gives him the right to go to this bus station, which was just 2 blocks, right, from where Tippett was shot, and get on a bus to go somewhere that nobody knows. Now, remember, he was walking opposite of where he went and got caught when Tippett saw him, right? He was walking down the sidewalk this way, shot Tippett, and ended up turning around and going all the way back this way. So he was evidently, according to this, heading to a bus transfer station to be transferred to go somewhere. Nobody knows where. I got my theories, we'll get into that later. Second thing they found on him was $13.87 in cash. That's important you understand that when we get into some information later. You had $13.87 in cash. He had his Marine Corps ring. Marine Corps ring. And probably the most incriminating evidence that he had on him when they searched him is he had 5 live rounds of .38 caliber ammunition in his trouser pocket. So, which tied to what?
The rifle.
The pistol that shot Tippett. Okay? So they found 5 live rounds, not spent shells, but live rounds in his trouser pocket. So, when he searched, they find a bus transfer ticket to a bus station that was only 2 blocks away from where Tippett was shot, a wallet with $13.87 in cash, Oswald's Marine Corps ring, and 5 live rounds of .38 caliber ammunition. I want you to think about this before we go on. He's 2 blocks from that bus station. If Tippett doesn't make, not really a mistake because that was a job, but if Tippett doesn't stop him there, doesn't see him, who knows where this history goes? Who knows where he goes? I think I know where he went. We'll worry about that later. But who knows what history is if Tippett doesn't stop him just 2 blocks from that transfer station. Okay, at 4:30 p.m., Kyra, same day, at 4:30 p.m., Oswald gets put in the first lineup. It's himself and 3 other individuals that are looking into bright lights. And Oswald's crying the whole time. He said, I stick out like a sore thumb compared to these others. They're going to pick me out for sure, and I didn't do anything. He's just a whiner. And they dress these people pretty much the same. They don't have guys in business suits and him with a scar over his face. I mean, they try to make this fair. And he's complaining the whole time. And these very bright lights are shined into their eyes to prevent him from seeing who's trying to identify him. Well, at 4:35 p.m., they put Oswald in position number 2. In other words, they line him up, kiddos. 1, 2, 3, 4. The person would be looking at them this way, and these lights will be in their eyes, right? And he's put in position number 2. That's where he's standing. Guess who the witness is that's trying to identify? Helen Markham. Very good. Helen Markham's brought in because they know that she witnessed the shooting of Tippett. So they bring her in and line these 4 guys up. As soon as she walks in and looks at the 4 men, she begins to cry. She starts crying as soon as she looks at the 4 men. And she states there is no doubt in her mind that man number 2 was the man who shot and killed Tippett. No doubt in her mind. She starts crying when she sees Oswald. And she points to number 2 and she says, there's no doubt in my mind, that is the man that shot J.D. Tippett. Well, so far so good, huh? At 4:50 p.m., same day, Kyra, while some of this is going on, the police go out to Ruth Payne's house with a search rifle. Search rifle, I gave it away. Search warrant, looking for what? They're looking for a rifle. Because if there's a rifle at Ruth Payne's, that's good for Oswald because they have the rifle in their possession. So if they go out there and find a rifle, that's going to make things complicated for them because it might not be Lee Harvey Oswald because if his rifle's there, there's not 2 rifles, right? So at 4, what's that?
Well, he said he didn't own a rifle.
He did, I know, but they don't believe him. But they got to find out if that, they're trying to tie that rifle to him, right? They got to find out if that rifle is his. Okay, so if they go out to Irving and find a rifle, probably not, right? So, they go out there at 4:50, and police stop and they ask Marina, his wife, at Ruth Payne's home, does Lee own a rifle? And she acknowledged that he did. She told the police, yeah, he does. He owns a rifle. What's the next question they asked? Where is it? Yeah, where is this rifle? And she said, well, my husband has it in Mrs. Payne's garage wrapped in a blanket on the floor. Okay. So they go in and ask her, Mrs. Oswald, does your husband own a rifle? Yes, he does. Where would he put such rifle? Well, he wraps it up in a blanket and it's laying on the floor. He's been storing it in Mrs. Payne's garage. The weird thing about that is Ruth Payne has no idea. This lady was a Quaker woman, very religious, very nonviolent, would have never allowed a gun in her home. Never. She has no idea that Lee Harvey Oswald is storing his gun in her garage. No idea whatsoever. And Marina's never told her. Well, Marina and Mrs. Payne escort the police officers out to the garage. There's the blanket laying right on the floor. Okay? Police officer goes over, bends down, lifts up the blanket. It goes limp right over his arm. Picks it up, no gun. No gun. Well, since there's no rifle found belonging to Lee Harvey Oswald at the Payne residence, the police return back to police headquarters in downtown Dallas, and now Fritz is going to try to connect the rifle found on the 6th floor to the missing rifle from Ruth Payne's garage. And it's a break for the police that that rifle wasn't at Ruth Payne's. Well, at 5:45 p.m. on the same day, Captain Fritz radios those police officers to bring both Marina and Mrs. Payne back to police headquarters for questioning. Okay, so while they're there trying to find this gun, they are radioed by Captain Fritz, and Captain Fritz asks them to bring Marina and Ruth back to police headquarters. They want to talk to him. What's Captain Fritz? Who's he really want to talk to?
Marina.
Marina. Because what's he want Marina to do? Identify the rifle. He wants to take her in and show her the rifle and say, hey, is this the rifle that Lee owns? Mrs. Payne just kind of brought for moral support, so the gal maybe doesn't feel too intimidated. Okay? So Captain Fritz is especially interested to see if Marina could identify the rifle found in the school book depository as the one her husband owned. Well, the police pick him up, bring him back to police headquarters. Now this is where we got to listen, and we got just about enough time to start on this. Just before they leave with Marina and Ruth back to police headquarters, a neighbor lady by the name of Linnie Mae Randall, who's on your sheet, appeared and asked if she could talk to the police officers. Can I talk to you a minute? This is a neighbor that comes down just before they leave to bring Marina and Ruth to police headquarters. A neighbor, Linnie Mae Randall.